Hey everybody, this is Nirali Shah. How are you? And I'm back with episode 3 of Ramayan, a new gen perspective. And I just hope that I can see you can hear me and you can see me live. And I'm going to be on screen in a minute. So wait up, tighten your seatbelts. And at all, if you're here, if you can hear me, just let me know that you're here. So, how have you been? And I hope you've been listening to the Newton Perspective Ramayan on my YouTube channel, which is called Alchemy of Being, and on my Facebook page. And I hope that you've referred to previous episodes of Ramayan, and I hope you're liking it. I hope you're enjoying the content, the information that I'm tapping into. And as I'd already mentioned before, that this is not going to be a typical, a typical storyline of, how and what events happened and, verses and all of that. There's going to be a little more depth to that timeline, that space, that era. And hey, I'm on screen. And okay, I can see myself. That's great. All right, so where are we going today? Okay, so let's start with a recap. So in the last episode, we went into the in the Ramayana era, where we tapped into different kind of an education system that existed on in India in that time in Ram's era, and what all it consisted, how it prepared students, and how Ram was prepared for his journey on earth. Besides him being the light bearer, him being the leader who was going to show the world a different way of lifestyle, of different way and possibility of relationship, different way of being, with as a king, as a brother, and all of that. And towards the end of the episode, we had reached the part where he's back to Ayodhya after having finished his education, and he was very happily and excitedly, like all the brothers basically were happily, excitedly were involved in the matters of the kingdom, helping their father King Dashrath in running the kingdom, getting in hands-on experience to how to lead, how to administer, how to manage people, listen to their issues, solve their conflicts, and come up with strategies and plans and ideas that would really help the kingdom flourish. Well, that's the role of a leader. So it's not like a status, but actually responsible. And one of the things that entire journey of Ram shows, a, a very determined and a very I wouldn't want to use the word dutiful, because we have made the word beautiful like very solid and significant, but very he was this one person that we have come to know, who had a very strong sense of being on own path, own journey, uh, on the mission that he was on while he was born on this earth. And for not a single minute he deviated from what he was meant to do. And did he have difficulties? Did he have, even in that time, did he have people trying to manipulate him or try to distract him? Well, yes. But did he move away from his path? And we will learn moving forward how even him, he, even he was like the mightiest and uh, the determined being existing in that era. Even then there were people, there were beings who constantly tried to neg him energetically, because as in that time a lot of things happened through telepathy, through the psychic superpowers. So there were elements who try to distract him from his road, but you know he had his goals pretty clear. We also learned how the level of clarity, uh, as such, that era had that sense and level of clarity amongst people. The era did not in any way have the elements of mind, which is like a biggest distraction in our present time and space. So let's jump into what happens now, because now he is ready, now he is already indulging himself into his role. And as I've kind of given you a hint that something is lurking in the shadows, waiting for him to take up his role. So, well, let's begin. I'll ask you to close your eyes for a minute and just travel yourself back into that era where we're going to travel into this beautiful, grand, glorious city and the palace of Ayodhya where Ram resides. And we're entering into this beautiful, lavishly designed court of King Dashrath. And the court is filled with a lot of wise men and people from different states and countries with their plans and their concerns about their people. And then there are other civilians who who have come with their personal issues, because in that time king's court is the final verdict. Like in our present moment, we have the criminal court and the family court and stuff like that, where we opt, if at all we have any level of conflict in our in any part of our life. um, in that era, definitely every city and every state of that specific empire had wise people who were appointed to handle such uh, you know small level of issues in their region. But even if the person wasn't satisfied with that verdict, then they were free to travel to king's court in his capital and ask for a better solution. So that was a free flow and direct connection that the people used to have with the kings. And so yes, there were people like who wanted help from the king. And as we heard in the previous episode, that Ram was really handling these kind of situations beautifully, making sure that there is a win-win situation for all the parties who are asking for resolution. and also they get an inner satisfaction and inner resolution at all somebody is uh, you know not being fair to the another, then Ram also had ways on settling that person's intention, that person's greediness, that person's unfairness or injustice towards the other with his wisdom, with his smartness, with his common sense. So, he was already becoming a known and loving prince. Now, in all of this, uh, while all this entire court is ready and the conversations are going on, people are speaking to Dashrath, and uh, all the ministers are there, and in all of that, uh, a wise, very divine and high vibrational uh, being steps forward in front of Dashrath, and this person's name is Vishwamitra. And we have heard the name Vishwamitra. He was one of the very, very powerful and known um, sage rishi uh, of that time. And in the intro session, I already talked about different species that existed on the earth, and rishis were one of those people who channeled esoteric information, energies on the earth, and somewhere they had a role uh, to play on their existence during their existence on the earth, to take care of uh, high vibrational energies and making sure that it is not disrupted by denser, darker, negative energies. So their role was to balance, keep that all in balance. And he steps forward, and obviously King Dashrath recognizes him and introduces all his sons and the entire court to the great rishi Vishwamitra. And he, of course, asks him, what is the purpose of your visit? And Vishwamitra talks about his present venture and why he is here. And he says that, uh, we have been performing certain rituals in our hermitage, in our ashram, and well, we have been having certain difficulty, and we have been facing a lot of difficulty in handling that ritual, that task, uh, for the betterment of our country. And while I was in the meditation, while I was looking for a solution, I was asked to come here and ask for your help. And King Dashrath was, obviously, he himself was the one who once battled various issues. Now he's aged, so he wasn't going actually on the wars and stuff like that. But there was a time when he actually attended a lot of wars, helped a lot of gods in their wars against demons, against Ravan. So he said, yes, any way, I'm here to help you. And he describes that there are the strength of demons are increasing in our region, in our in overall planet, for some reason, and we are actually trying to create a balance through our rituals, so that we don't have to go into that terrific war that we saw a few years back, in which you were part too. And but since these energies recognizes that we are trying to take away their strengths, um, they are actually creating a lot of disturbances in our entire yagya process. And so I'm here with a message, with intuitive calling to approach you to actually help me by sending your two sons with me, who would take care of these demons while we actually accomplish this ritual. And as much as Dashrath was happy, he, being a father, obviously he knew that his sons are ready. But the image that we have of demons in our mind, he did, obviously in his mind he did feel that they're still young and they still do not require to face such difficulty. So he hesitates a little bit, but when he looks at all his sons, he sees that they don't fear. In fact, they are rather ready to face their duties. Vishwamitra, recognizing Dashrath's hesitation, also mentions that I know that the sons who are going to come with me will have. It's their role. It's their work in this life to actually slay these demon beings. So their journey begins at this point, and it would not be a nice thing to stop them from actually going for allowing them to go on their roads, on their path. Dashrath, obviously he being the wise king and the wise men himself, knew that uh, his sons had their roles. And so Ram and Lakshman, these are the two people that were chosen to go with Vishwamitra and taking care of uh, these difficulties that demons were causing in their rituals. And Bharat and Shatrughna, since they already had some responsibilities, they stayed back in the palace. Now, this is a moment, this is a place where Ram's and Lakshman's journey, uh, first steps to the journey begin. There is so much more that is coming, but this is like the first step. And when you have a bigger mission, when there is something big ahead in the future in front of you, you have prepared well in advance for it, and you will have no idea how that is going to be like, what is coming in front of you. You just have to keep following those small steps that automatically come in front of you on your road. And when you accomplish that step uh, you know beautifully, you're taken to the next step, next door opens, and you finish that task and that task, and then ultimately you actually facing your destiny, or whatever you're actually ultimately here to do. So that's how Ram's first steps into his actual role uh, in this life begins. And on their journey, obviously he stayed in Rishi Vashishta's ashram. He's being trained, so he doesn't find it very difficult to travel on foot with Vishwamitra. He doesn't find it difficult because Vishwamitra is a rishi, so obviously he wouldn't use chariots and stuff. So Ram and Lakshman went walking with him. This is a time. Okay, one more information that I would like to add to this episode, and that is, this is a time where the age of people, like they were really really old, like they used to live for a really really long time, which is something that I've already mentioned. But I would also like to add that people in this time were really really tall also, and the build up was strong, the stamina was strong. So how we usually get tired if we walk like more than a certain kilometers. In this time, well, that wasn't like not the case the way we have, like they're like really really well built. They're built for wars. So they're built to use their energy, their strength for a long time, using a lot of metallic weapons and carrying a lot of weight and all of that. So um, there's good strength. So they they can be faster. There is a lot of ease when they also travel by foot. So all of this is going to come in handy to Ram. All of this is like a practice, small steps to what all he's going to meet very soon in his future. So, well, they begin their journey, and Rishi Vishwamitra starts talking about different demons that are actually causing him troubles. And the entire, from Ayodhya to Vishwamitra's ashram, there are many small spaces, forests, villages that they have to cross to actually reach to him, to reach to his place of ritual. And also that entire road has some or the other thing that is adding to Ram and Lakshman's journey in their knowledge, the things that they were meant to learn after they finish the training, and some things that are going to prepare them to what is coming in the future. Now, one of the story of the demons that Ram is to slay, that Vishwamitra talks about, is about um, Tatika. So there is this demoness uh, who lives in the the Tatka forest, and she. So now I'm actually going to describe, what happened to Tatka in a more, understandable way, and also what creates demons. Like, as I somewhere mentioned also, that demons are basically a more denser energy. Also, uh, like in science we study that energy is transmutable, it can change form. So um, anything which is dense can also get lighter, anything that is dark can also turn into light just by adding light to that. And Ram and Lakshman's role was to either transmute that darkness or kill that darkness. Now, here it is not about killing the person or the being. It's not about, because I hate you and you're bad, so I should kill you in that manner. But it is about killing the denseness, the darkness, the negativity, that is destroying the person first, and then freeing that surrounding from the dark energy. Now, in that time, in the previous episode, as I've already created a base, that in that time it was very definable which was dark and light. Like, the denseness was, in every way visible, in the dressing, in the way they spoke, in the way they behaved. It was very visible, and so it was very easy for people to establish and determine, what is good and what is bad. In the present time, it is very difficult, because these denser, darker energies exist within us. They realize after all of these periods, as we change, as civilizations change, as the time change, as we continue to accumulate pains and sufferings, and a lot of these darker energies is where they decided to go inside us, so that we cannot find them, because we cannot really look for something that is within. We have lost our way within. We literally try to look for ways on the outside, wherein the actual, and like every religion, every spiritual content, every self-help book would talk about that, you find a way within. And demons, uh, how are they created? These are the people who totally deviate from their own light with any such incident in their personal life or in their past life. There are also many mentions of their past lives in demons also, where Ravan was also something else in the previous life, and then he chose to be Ravan, like demon, but he was a divine being in the other life. So a good being, something happens to that person, and then they hold on to some dense energy such as hatred or some sort of a grievances towards something, or a certain situation or a person, or they hold on to some sort of um, there is hatred, there is grievances, some sort of a personal, uh, they repent on something, they hate themselves sometimes. So these are like, greed is another level, greed to the extreme, where you just cannot let something go. um, Extreme hatred kind of adds to extreme anger, which again, so any being whose subconscious had more of uh, you know these kind of energies, or these kind of elements, which is hatred or some sort of a strong opinion about something and someone, and then they want to take a revenge. These are the people who would, in a more easier language, I would say that they would be born as demons. So their entire role is to um, trouble anyone that meets their agenda, which is to which kind of moved them or shook them in the previous life, in a certain incident, who all those people who kind of troubled them in the previous life because of that incident. If they come across something like that, then these are the people who would go attack, take their revenge. So revenge is one of the major element that is playing role in entirety of the Ramayana. And now I'm coming to the part of what happened to Tatka. Now this this demoness, basically, she was again in her younger age, way before she took over this specific forest called the Tatka forest and all that. She was born with a blessing by a rishi, and she was blessed with the 1,000 elephants power. Like, how in Mahabharat Bhim is as strong as the 1,000 elephants. She was also born with that much power, that much strength, and she was a woman. And well, she was married to another person, and she had a child whose name was Marich. And they, like, they must be having a really good life. But something happened, and her husband dies, and she somewhere comes to know that it is one of the rishi who killed him. And without maybe knowing what happened, when you are when there's lack of wisdom, there is lack of insight in your world, we immediately come to some sort of a judgment about something, rather than actually going to uh, what happened in that space, what happened in that incident. People immediately come to a judgment that, oh, this has happened, and this person has done this to me, and now I'm going to take revenge. And that's exactly what happened to Tatka. She did not go into any wise introspection about that situation, and she decided that it's the rishis. All the rishis in the world are bad, they are the killers of people like us, and I'm going to take revenge of my husband. So however many rishis she would kill and trouble, she would have no satisfaction. And then ultimately, in her quest, she and her, obviously her son also joined her as he grew in taking care of this revenge. And they ultimately took, they traveled, they were somewhere in the southern area, and then they travel all the way up to the north doing this. And they took over this entire Tatka one. So that one, that forest became known from her name. which is haunted by Tatka. So people wouldn't travel to this forest, and the rishis who were actually having their ashrams, their hermitages in that area, they were all kicked out. And before Tatka actually came there, that forest was like the most divine, beautiful space, because where beautiful divine energies are channeled on the daily basis, automatically the area of that that space, that region changes. The plants grow beautifully, they have more healing power, the herbs over there, the trees are very happy, the birds, animal life is beautiful. There are, like, really, really nice spirit life that actually helps the forest to prosper on the daily basis, because there is really positive vibration in that space. So the moment you enter that forest, you know that um, this is a divinely blessed forest. So this was a very prosperous forest until Tatka came. And when she came, obviously with her energy, with her intentions, she kind of spoiled that place. So it became a very dense space in terms of that, all the happy space, all the beautiful spirit life, that all transmuted into something, not transmuted, like transformed into very, very dark thing. The plants that grew over there were also feeling very heavy, and they also felt like hating. There is a lot of dryness. There is no, like, there is no prosperity in that forest. The moment you enter, you somewhere get a feeling that this is more of a haunted place. Like, we always have this conversation about this place feels haunted, this place feels dark, the vibe here is not good. Well, this was like really, really bad. And in that time, obviously, people recognized it really, really fast, because they had those senses, like really, really expansive and powerful senses to recognize these kind of things. So Vishwamitra first takes Ram to this forest, updating him with the entire story of Tatka, and also lets him know that this hatred and revenge in her has become so solid that we have failed to change it. With our rituals, with our conversations, we have failed to change this. So there is no other way but to actually kill that darkness. Now, also in this time, somewhere, obviously, women were respected, and so be, any warrior, any kshatriya, would or royal blood would never go and kill a woman, and she was a woman, and that was also coming in the way of destroying her. But Ram had a totally different responsibility, and he his role was actually to you know clear and cleanse the earth of these kind of anti-conscious, unconscious energies, and make the space for more divine, wise, positive vibrations, energies. And so with that, um, uh, Ram is, he enters into the Tatka forest energetically. Tatka also comes to know that somebody called Ram has come, and obviously she he's here to destroy me, and she is in her full strength, full power. And as I said, like, Tatka is like 1,000 elephant, and these two little boys, like, they're just about 25 or so. And this is also their first encounter on the field. They have not been on the wars. They have been fighting among themselves. So like, very um, uh, uh, safe training. Now, all of a sudden, the first enemy coming in front of them is this powerful. Now, there is this proverb that i- any situation that is in front of you, if only you have the strength to fight against it, then it is appearing in front of you. So imagine the kind of strength that Ram had at that age to even be chosen to face as powerful as somebody as powerful as Tatka. So she now, couple of things that I would like to add about demons is, like, they do have a lot of superpowers. One of the thing that they can very easily do is manipulate themselves and shape shift themselves into something different. So if they like, they could turn themselves into some animals. If they like, they could turn themselves into some, and different demons, just like different human beings or different uh, gods have different strengths and superpowers. The same way different demons have different superpowers. So uh, some were good with using water, and some were good with using stones and rocks, and some were good with trees. But all of this is not to protect, not to advance or prosper things. All of this was to destroy all of these strengths. Now, Tatka, in various forms, there is a great fight between Tatka and Ram and Lakshman, and these two people against this army of Tatka. And army of Tatka means all of her, and really, really huge uh, demonic being in front of them. She tries all the ways by scaring them. And demons, like, as we sometimes go watch this horror movies, and how sometimes, like, we really feel scared, even though we know that these are uh, this is all just the makeup, or this is just the special effects and all. But this was a real being in front of them, like, some feet away from there, trying to scare them. She had this really uh, horrified voice that she would use and speak to them, which that voice itself, her voice itself, scared people. But these two beings, with all their practice, with all their capacity, their potential, and the way they were trained, uh, they stood by, they stood in front of her, and they also tried various ways until, but obviously she was too powerful, and the war continued, like, between Tatka and Ram for a long time. In between, like, Vishwamitra would help them see, because it wasn't his job to kill, even though he had all the knowledge. It was Ram and Lakshman's responsibility. So he would help them with different insights, different kind of knowledge, that try this, and ultimately they end up clearing that unconscious energy in Tatka. And that's where, because her entire body, all of her being had become so filled with hatred towards rishis, and she so wanted to destroy all of them, that there was no other way but to actually destroy all of all of that, so that she can transmute into more, she could be free from that revenge. So the idea of how Ram would function in killing any of the demons was to actually free them from that revenge, from that denseness, so that they can become a better being in the coming journey, in whatever next life they can choose. Because unless you're not free from this hatred and this revenge and this grievances and repentance, and like whatever that darkest energy, the element that exists within you, if you're not freeing yourself from that, you cannot be free, and you cannot make a better choice for yourself. So well, obviously, she died. uh, Now, since, as I said, like, the beings, they have a, like, they are very, like, I would say, like, they don't have much of common sense and understand why something happened. So her son Marich, he was young, so Ram was like, I'll forgive you, don't do this to people. And Marich at that time manipulated, and he says, okay, fine, I'm going, thank you for letting me go. And he moved. We will meet Marich somewhere in the future in the coming episodes, as inside him he has decided that he is going to somewhere trouble Ram because he killed his mother. So revenge, so one of the area is cleared, one person's revenge is cleared, but another person is filled with revenge now. And from here, Ram moves to various different forests, various different hermitages, meeting different sages, meeting different people, learning in the journey, in the process, traveling with Vishwamitra about what his region is all about, how people function, what is the history of his region. And Vishwamitra has been again, another great visionary teacher who teaches him as he proceeds, as he progresses. Vishwamitra gives him all the things that he's yet to um, he's going to require in the process to uh, require, that Ram and Lakshman will require in the coming journey. So one of the like that's called a secret knowledge that he shared with them was about, because the in fighting with people like demons like that guy, you require a lot of strength, a lot of energy, and sometimes you don't have time to eat. And then just eating is not enough, you require a totally different level of energy and strength to face people with that is as strong as a huge army. So they how to channel energy that keeps you going, keeps your strength intact for a very, very, very long time. So, channeling that sort of a strength through meditation. So, Ram and Lakshmana were taught that very specific secret knowledge by Rishi Valmiki, Vishwamitra. And uh, as they succeeded in one or the other tasks of killing demons, Valmiki showed them how to channel different divine weapons also. So, and how to use them. So after having studied from Rishi Vashishta, this was like a real hands-on. So this is more like an internship going in Ram's life, where he meets his, he gets aware of, you know, the life in the forest, how to actually, not just theoretically but practically handle demons, learn about their tricks, because demons sometimes can be very, very tricky and they can really fool you. And one of the things the demons do is actually take over, they instill some sort of a negativity in your world, in your intention, in your subconscious. And so somewhere you start doubting yourself, you start uh, you know um, feeling unworthy, you start um, you basically you start losing your strength against them just by they overpowering your subconscious. And that's something that that happens to us even now, as a lot of negativity, a lot of anxiety, the sense of uh, unworthiness, hatred towards self. All of these are, they don't know physical demon outside, but these are the demons that reside within us. And when something gets triggered, some pain, like how Tatka's pain would get triggered the moment she would see a rishi, or when your moment our pain gets triggered, automatically these demonic energies come to the surface, and we start getting into this roller coaster of negativity and anxiety and hatred and judgment towards self, towards others. And until we actually call upon this divine, energy, and actually start killing these negativity, these elements that actually stops us from having a beautiful, prosperous, flourishing life. And they don't want us basically to have that. You know how Tatka was, she created such a mess in a beautiful, prosperous forest. That's exactly what happens inside us when we don't, even after knowing that these negative elements exist in us, if we don't do something about it, well, they end up creating that kind of a forest within us. And they stop us from moving forward in as a successful person, in terms of having beautiful relationships, in terms of having a good life, and a you know sense of worthiness, a sense of joy in our life, in our living, in what we are doing, and also achieving our goals that we came with, that we are born with, to move towards our true potential, our true skills, our true strengths. They actually, these demoning energy, or these denser energies that exist in our mind, in our subconscious, actually overpower the strengths that we have. So the question that I would like to add before I wind up today's session is that, do you really wish to flourish as the powerful, skillful uh, person you are, or you would allow the demon to create the damage in your subconscious and dwell in that demonic forest like Tatka lived? So, would you like to kill Tadka within you? Well, if at all you find an opportunity to work upon your negativity, grab that chance, allow yourself to flourish in the beautiful being that you are. Let Ram and his divine energies, kill the all the Tadkas within you, and grow, prosper. All right, so it's time for me to wind up today's session, and we're going to continue our journey with Vishwamitra, Ram, and Lakshman in the fourth episode, where we will see, as a result of all his hard work, what is it that Ram achieves at the end of his first step into his journey. And with that, I'll say goodbye to all of you. Enjoy, take care. See you day after tomorrow, um, live and on my YouTube channel, Alchemy of Being, with the episode 4 of Ramayan, A New Gen Perspective. Take care. Bye bye.